My name is Simone Painter. I'm 30, and until last Tuesday at 9:07 a.m., I thought my future was steady enough to stand on. Steady like the Vermont lake that holds my cottage in its mirror, 2 bedrooms, cedar porch, a dock where the mornings smell like wet pine and coffee. I paid for it outright with overtime and takeout and a spine made out of stubborn. No mortgage, no liens, no we'll see, just mine. So when the certified envelope with my legal name in that graveyard font slid under my door, the world tilted 5 degrees. Inside, notice of default and intent to foreclose. My heart tried to punch through my ribs. They wrote my cottage like it was a hostage note. I called the number on the letter and asked for a mistake. Ms. Painter, the loan officer said, careful as if each word had edges. You're a co-borrower on a $150,000 business loan. The collateral is your vacation property. I don't co-borrow. I could hear my voice split in two. There's no loan. There's never been a loan. A pause. Papers whispering. We have your signature on the documents, your driver's license, social security card. I remember every errand I've ever run and every form I've ever signed. I remember the feeling of pen to paper like a door clicking shut. I want to see everything, I said. Today. Evan, my boyfriend, offered to come with me. He has the kind of calm that doesn't lecture. Text me the time, he said, brow creased. I'll meet you there. At the bank, the loan officer placed a file on the table like he was lowering a casket. Inside were copies of my license and my signature. My name slanted almost right, like someone practiced tracing me until their hand learned my habits, but not my weight. The address listed wasn't mine. It was my parents' street. The phone number? No idea. The loan date was 18 months ago. The funds went to Jenna's Field Kitchen, LLC. Jenna, my younger sister, is the family's creative spirit, a phrase my parents pronounce with the same reverence they use for Christmas and cholesterol. Her restaurant opened with a balloon arch and a press release written by Sabrina, Evan's ex, who briefly consulted on Jenna's brand launch back when bad ideas still had confetti. This is fraud, I told the loan officer. Someone forged my name. He flipped a page to the notary stamp. The ink bled through like a bruise. We'll cooperate with any investigation, he said, like a man reciting his seatbelt instructions mid-crash. When I stepped outside, the sky had that thin, bright look winter gets before it decides to snow. Evan squeezed my shoulder. We'll fight this. His voice was steady, but I felt the punchline lining up. The people who raised me were about to become names in a case file. I drove to my parents' house. The minute I walked in, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and the soft panic of people who have practiced a story. Mom, Patricia, put a hand to her chest. Simone, honey, you look pale. Sit, sit. Dad, Robert, didn't ask me to sit. He stared at the envelope in my hand like it might bark. I went to the bank, I said. They showed me loan documents with my name and a signature that's not mine. My cottage is listed as collateral. The address on the file is this house. Do I need to keep going? Silence, except for the grandfather clock in the hallway counting each second like a witness. Mom broke first. Your sister needed help, she said, voice already splintering. It was supposed to be temporary. The restaurant is our legacy. We thought you'd understand. Legacy, as if you can airbrush theft with a word. Dad picked up where she left off. We intended to tell you. We were waiting for the numbers to turn. 18 months isn't forever. It is when it's my house, I said, my name. They exchanged a look that said the rehearsal had not covered this part. Where's Jenna? I asked. She's at the restaurant, Mom said, then corrected herself. Well, the space. She's figuring things out. Figuring things out used to mean borrowing my clothes and not returning them. Now it was the legal equivalent of pulling copper pipes out of a wall. When I called Jenna, she answered breathless, as if she were dodging a question even before I asked one. Simone, hey, I heard you stopped by the bank. You knew, I said. The words were heavier than I expected. You knew my cottage was collateral. A beat. Then, I thought Mom and Dad used their place, or Grandpa's old lot. They said family was backing it. Her voice tilted into something defensive. I thought you'd be okay with it. Okay, like, you steal my future and I thank you for the honor? You make good money, Simone. You barely go up there. I go every other weekend. I plan to retire there. She laughed. You're 30. Retirement is like forever from now. The restaurant was now. There it was, the family algebra where my work became air and her dream became gravity. I swallowed. I'm filing a police report. I've retained a lawyer. You forged my signature. We didn't forge anything, she shot back, sudden and sharp. Mom and Dad handled the paperwork. I run food, not files. The bank has documents, the notary stamp. The address is theirs, but the signature is my name, on your loan. Jenna exhaled like the world was asking too much of her. Look, maybe we can fix this. You take over the loan. We rebrand with a new location. You can be operations. I'll handle creative. Evan can help with marketing. He's good at. I hung up before I could say something I'd have to eat later. The quiet in my car had a ringing to it. I texted Evan. She knew. He replied, I'm here, whatever you need. Then, after a beat, Sabrina's name came up. I'll keep that separate unless you want me to step in. Sabrina. Once upon a time, she'd shaken my hand at Jenna's opening and said, You must be the practical sister, like a compliment with a bruise under it. She'd been the one to teach Jenna that hype can outrun math, until invoices do the catching. At the precinct, the detective listened without flinching. Identity theft, forgery, real property collateralization. She slid me a list of what to gather. Emails, texts, any bank interactions, copies of my ID issued dates, proof of where I was the day the paperwork was allegedly signed. I had a calendar. I had Slack logs. I had receipts. I felt suddenly like a person with bones again. My lawyer, referral from a coworker who'd survived a guardianship nightmare, read through the bank copies and nodded slowly. The handwriting's close but wrong. The bank's verification procedures look porous. We'll file a criminal report and a civil claim. We'll also negotiate to halt the foreclosure while they investigate. Can I lose the cottage? I asked. There's a version of that sentence that's a scream. If we move fast, probably not, she said. But prepare yourself. Once you pull one thread, you may see the whole sweater. Threads started to appear immediately. The bank had notes from the original application. Co-borrower unable to attend closing. References confirm eagerness. The references? My parents. The contact number? That same stranger I'd never heard of. When the loan officer said they'd verify with family, the whole room smelled like lemon cleaner again. That night, my phone lit up at 6:02 a.m. Mom and Dad on the doorstep, eyes red, voices blurred. You're going to destroy us, Mom cried. Your father can't handle prison. This will kill him. Dad's jaw was set like a locked door. Drop it. We'll fix it like family. Family doesn't forge, I said, and they both flinched, like I'd flicked blood. Dad stepped closer. You've always been selfish. Jenna needed help, and you would have said no, because you're jealous of her success. Success! The restaurant was already closed 3 months, rent unpaid, suppliers angry. The only thing flourishing was the lie. Mom switched tactics. After everything we did for you, piano lessons, college, there it was, the invoice for my childhood. Raising me wasn't a down payment on my house. After they left, Evan wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, the way you do for people who've just seen fire. You're doing the right thing, he said, rubbing small circles on my back. I know it hurts, but truth will hold. Somewhere between his hand and the hum of my refrigerator, a memory surfaced. Grandma asking me to help tidy her mail last year, Dad waving me off. We've got her bills handled, don't worry. The same week, Grandpa's business property, the one meant for the grandkids, went quiet in family conversation like a song cut mid-chorus. Loose threads, a sweater unraveling. I pulled up Jenna's launch video. Sabrina's voiceover called the restaurant a bet on family. I paused on the frame where the ribbon is about to break and wondered how many signatures had already snapped first. I looked at the foreclosure notice one more time and then slid it into a folder labeled evidence. I wasn't going to let them cash out my future to pay for the prettiest version of a lie. The police report wasn't even 24 hours old when the first guilt call came. Simone, my mother's voice cracked through the phone like a slow leak. You don't have to involve lawyers. We can fix this as a family. Fix this. Like it was a loose picture frame, not felony fraud. By lunchtime, 3 aunts had texted variations of the same script. Family over paperwork. One cousin wrote, Jenna just wanted to build something beautiful. Don't ruin it. By evening, my voicemail sounded like a choir of disappointed relatives rehearsing for a play called Ungrateful Daughter. Evan listened to a few, his jaw tightening. They're not asking you to make peace, he said. They're asking you to trade accountability for silence. He was right. But silence had been the family's favorite currency long before I learned the word boundary. 2 days later, Jenna showed up at my apartment. She wore oversized sunglasses like she was hiding from paparazzi instead of prosecution. "Can we talk?" she asked, clutching an iced latte like a peace offering. "You forged my name, Jenna." "I didn't forge anything," she snapped. "I signed it in because Mom said it was just a formality, and you'd be fine with it. You always make good money, Simone. You don't even use the cottage that much." Her words hit like cheap perfume, familiar, cloying, designed to linger. "I use it every other weekend," I said quietly, "and I bought it with 10 years of overtime and skipped vacations. It's not a trinket." She rolled her eyes. Okay, look, maybe this got messy, but I have an idea." "An idea?" "Yes." Her voice brightened, as if we'd just switched to brainstorming mode. "The restaurant failed because of bad branding and location. We can relaunch. You cover the loan. I rebrand it as something smaller, rustic chic. Evan can help with the PR. "Evan's not your consultant," I cut in, "and I'm not your business partner. This conversation is over." Her mouth fell open. "You'd let me lose everything? Over a paperwork mistake?" "Not everything," I said, "just access to my signature." She stormed out, muttering something about me loving drama more than family. I almost laughed. Drama? My name was on a forged mortgage. If this were a movie, it'd be titled "The Family Who Used Me for Collateral." A week later, my grandmother's 85th birthday rolled around. I didn't want to go, but skipping it would only confirm the cold-hearted Simone narrative. Evan offered to come, but I told him no. I needed to face it alone. When I arrived, every conversation stopped like someone hit mute. My uncle gave me a curt nod. My mother rushed over, wearing that smile she uses like a curtain. There she is, the birthday girl's favorite granddaughter. I almost asked her if perjury came before or after cake. During dinner, people whispered across plates. Then Jenna stood to make a speech. Of course she did. "Family means helping each other, even when mistakes happen," she said, eyes glistening just enough to pass as sincerity. "Sometimes we forget what really matters. Love, forgiveness." Her gaze landed on me, like a spotlight she thought I'd be too ashamed to stand under. Polite applause followed. My aunt leaned over and murmured, "She's just hurting, dear." "I noticed," I said. When dessert arrived, my grandmother tugged at my sleeve. "Honey, maybe there's a compromise? Your sister's dream? It just needs time." I took her hand gently. "Grandma, they didn't borrow. They stole. They used my house, forged my name. That's not a dream. It's fraud." Her brow creased. "But your parents said they just co-signed for her." Of course they did. They'd rewritten the story so well that half the room thought I was the villain with a lawyer fetish. Across the table, my father caught my eye and mouthed, "Enough." I stood up, every nerve on fire. "You want enough? Fine." The room went still. "You forged my signature. You used my ID. You stole my property. You lied to Grandma. And now you're turning this into a morality play to make me look cruel. I'm done being your scapegoat." Jenna whispered, "Don't do this here." "Where else, Jenna? In another courtroom?" A hush fell. Even the candles flickered nervously. I turned to Grandma. "I love you, but I can't be part of this cover-up." Then I placed my napkin on the table and walked out. Outside, the cold air felt cleaner than it should have. Evan was waiting by his car, engine off, hands in his pockets. "You went anyway," he said softly. I had to see what I was fighting. He nodded, opened the passenger door. "And what did you find?" "That they've already rewritten the story." He started the car. "Then we'll write ours louder." 2 days later, the bank called again. Their internal audit had flagged inconsistencies in other family loans tied to my parents' names, property deeds, business assets, even a trust document. My lawyer texted, "We might be looking at a much larger fraud pattern." I stared at the message until it blurred. Evan squeezed my hand. "You ready?" I exhaled. "No, but I'm done pretending this is just about me." Somewhere, in the space between fear and fury, resolve took root. The deeper my lawyer dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't a single act of desperation. It was an entire system of deceit built with family names and forged signatures. It started with my cottage, but soon the bank's investigation uncovered 3 additional loans under my parents' profile. One involved my grandmother's house, another was tied to my late grandfather's business property, and a third, ironically, listed my cousin's trust fund as pledged collateral. When my lawyer slid the files across her desk, I stared at the signatures, each one a different imitation of someone's trust. "Your parents didn't just bend the rules, Simone," she said softly. "They turned your family into a financing web." I should have felt numb by then, but numbness implies distance. I was inside it, every heartbeat a gavel pounding in my chest. Evan came with me when I met Grandma. She was sitting by her window, holding a teacup that trembled in her hands. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice small. "Your father said the papers I signed were just for my insurance. I didn't know about the house." She looked at me like someone confessing a crime they didn't commit. I held her hand. "You didn't know, Grandma. They took advantage of your trust." Her eyes watered. "Your grandpa wanted that house to stay in the family. He'd be heartbroken." "I think he'd be proud you told the truth," I said. When Evan and I left, he didn't say anything for a while. Then, "You're handling this better than most people would." I laughed, short, humorless. "You mean not screaming in the street?" He smiled faintly. "That too." A week later, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't expected to see again. Sabrina. "Hey, Simone, long time no talk. I heard about the situation with Jenna. If you ever want to talk, I've been trying to help her with PR. She's devastated." I stared at the message, feeling my pulse spike. PR. That was Sabrina's specialty, controlling the story. I didn't respond. Instead, I checked her social media. Sure enough, there it was. A new post from Jenna's account, tagged with #family over everything and a caption that read, "Sometimes people don't understand the sacrifices we make for our dreams, but we keep building." The Yankees. In the photo, Jenna was sitting beside Sabrina, pretending to be a martyr instead of an accomplice. Evan looked over my shoulder and muttered, "They're trying to spin it." "Not just spin," I said, "rewrite." I took screenshots, every post, every tag, every DM that connected Sabrina to Jenna's fake narrative. Because when Sabrina texted again saying, "You don't want to go nuclear on family, it won't look good on you," I knew this wasn't just a warning, it was a threat. The next morning, my lawyer called. "Simone, I think you need to see this in person." She laid out bank documents like playing cards. The dates were spaced 6 months apart, each loan connected to one of my relatives. My father's signature appeared in all of them, my mother's in 2, and, on 2 of them, Jenna's handwriting was unmistakable. She was present during at least one signing, my lawyer said. The restaurant wasn't her first project. It's the latest in a pattern: food truck, catering, even a soap brand that failed within weeks. I let out a bitter laugh. So this wasn't about one dream, it was about keeping the fantasy alive. "And funding it with everyone else's money," she added. That night, my aunt, one of the few relatives who still spoke to me, called in tears. "Simone, I'm so sorry. We just found out Mom's house is part of this. Your dad used the trust account as leverage. The property's under lien." I sat there in silence, listening to my family collapse like dominoes. By morning, my Uncle David called too. "I'm joining your case," he said. "Your parents used Grandpa's old business lot for another loan. I was about to buy it to expand my company." He exhaled sharply. "They've been stealing from all of us." It hit me then. This wasn't a private betrayal. It was generational fraud disguised as family loyalty. 3 days later, Jenna showed up again. No apology this time. No latte. Just raw panic under smeared mascara. "Simone, you need to talk to the lawyer," she said, breathless. "They're saying I might get charged too, but I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know." "You signed documents, Jenna." "I thought it was just formalities. Dad said," I echoed. "That line's been protecting him for decades." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm not like them. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." For the first time, I almost believed her, but almost doesn't hold up in court. The investigation kept snowballing. The bank quietly admitted its own failure to verify cosigner identities, which meant my case had leverage. They paused all foreclosures and froze the fraudulent accounts. My parents responded by hiring a lawyer of their own, a man who sent a letter claiming they had broad family authority to make financial decisions under a supposed power of attorney document. Evan read the letter and snorted. "That's the legal version of trust me, bro." But inside, I was shaking, because if they were willing to drag Grandma's signature into this again, nothing was off limits. Late one night, I sat at the kitchen table sorting through old folders. Evan was asleep, the house quiet. That's when I found it, a dusty envelope with a return address from 2 years ago. Painter Family Holdings, LLC. I didn't even know such a company existed. Inside was a copy of a trust deed with my grandfather's signature, dated 3 months after his death. I froze, then whispered to myself, "They forged him too." The room tilted. Every lie, every story about keeping the legacy alive, suddenly looked like what it really was. Theft with good intentions and terrible handwriting. I put the envelope into my evidence folder and whispered what I'd been too afraid to say aloud until that moment. They made us all collateral. The storm broke the following week. Not the kind that rattles windows. This one came through subpoenas, court summons, and names printed on letterhead. The state prosecutor's office had officially opened a family fraud investigation. When my lawyer called to confirm, I was sitting on the porch of my cottage, the same deck they'd almost stolen. The lake was calm, indifferent, but my hands weren't. "Simone," she said, her voice steady but urgent, "your parents have been charged with multiple counts: fraud, forgery, and elder abuse related to your grandmother's property. Jenna's being investigated as a co-conspirator." I didn't say anything for a full minute, just listened to the sound of the wind scraping across the water. "They'll try to talk to you," she continued. "Do not engage. Everything goes through me." Of course they did. That night my phone lit up with my mother's name, then Dad's, then Jenna's. I silenced every call. By morning, I woke to 27 voicemails. The first few were pleading. The last few were venom. "How could you do this to your family? Your father's heart can't take this. You've always been jealous of your sister. You're no better than the people you claim to protect." But the message that chilled me came from Sabrina. "Simone, you're blowing this up too far. Jenna's terrified. The press will eat this alive. I'm trying to protect what's left of your family's name, but if you keep leaking details, I can't help you anymore." I hadn't leaked anything, but the way she said it, like she already knew what headlines would say, made my stomach twist. Evan found me staring at my phone, white-knuckled. "She's bluffing," he said. "She wants you scared enough to fold." "I'm not folding," I whispered. "Good," he said, "because people like them only win when decent people stay quiet." The arraignment felt like walking through a movie where every character looked vaguely familiar, but the story was too ugly to be fiction. My parents sat at the defense table, hands folded like they were attending a PTA meeting. Jenna, beside them, kept her eyes glued to the floor. When the clerk read the charges, forgery, identity theft, wire fraud, elder financial abuse, Mom's lip trembled. Dad just stared straight ahead. My lawyer leaned close. "Don't react. They want to see if you'll flinch." I didn't. When it was over, I walked out of the courtroom, ignoring the whispers. But just as I reached the door, I heard my father's voice behind me. "Simone!" I turned. His face was gray, his voice low. "You've torn this family apart. Is that what you wanted?" For a moment, the daughter in me wanted to cry, but the woman who fought for her name just said, "You did that the day you forged it." After the hearing, the prosecutor met us in a private conference room. "They've entered preliminary negotiations," she said. "We expect plea discussions. But there's something else you need to know. The bank's internal audit turned up at least 4 unrelated families your parents scammed through fake business partnerships. This wasn't isolated." I closed my eyes. It wasn't just us. Evan took my hand. "So this goes beyond family fraud." The prosecutor nodded. "This goes federal." The months that followed blurred into filings, interviews, evidence logs. My grandmother moved in with Uncle David after investigators confirmed she'd been tricked into signing a power of attorney she didn't understand. Jenna tried reaching me twice. The first time, she left a voicemail crying, saying she was trapped in something bigger than herself. The second time, her tone had changed. Cold. Practiced. "I'm talking to my lawyer. You'll see the truth when this is over." I didn't respond. Because the truth was already written in ink. Black, notarized, and bleeding through every document they forged. Meanwhile, Sabrina's PR cleanup started unraveling. The prosecutor's office subpoenaed her communications, revealing that she had been coaching Jenna on how to frame the family as emotionally motivated, not criminally. When the messages surfaced, her tone changed instantly. She deleted everything and vanished from social media for a week. Evan, who had known her long before this, just sighed and, "She's not the villain," he said quietly. "She's the enabler." "Same difference," I replied. The day the asset freeze was finalized, I drove to my cottage again. For the first time, I could breathe there. I changed the locks, installed a new security system, symbolic and practical. Evan helped me secure the windows. As he worked, he asked, "What will you do if they go to prison?" "I'll rebuild," I said simply. "But I won't bail them out. Not this time." He looked up, eyes soft. "You sound like you're finally free." "Freedom's expensive," I said, "but I can afford it now." Weeks later, the prosecutor called again. "The plea deals are nearly done. Your father will serve time, 18 months, likely federal. Your mother's looking at probation plus restitution. Jenna's facing lesser charges for signing forged documents but cooperating." I swallowed. "And Grandma?" "She's safe. Her property's being refinanced properly with your uncle's help. She wanted me to tell you she's proud of you." For the first time in months, my throat tightened for something other than anger. That night, Evan and I sat by the lake, the cottage light glowing behind us. "You could have walked away," he said. "Just let the bank handle it quietly." "I thought about it," I admitted, "but silence is what let them think this was normal." He nodded, staring at the water. "You know what I see when I look at that cottage?" "What?" "A woman who refused to let her family bury her under the word loyalty." The moon caught on the surface of the lake like a signature, real, impossible to fake. For the first time, I didn't feel stolen from. I felt claimed, by my own name. 6 months later, the story that began with a forged signature ended under fluorescent courtroom lights. The judge's gavel came down like punctuation, sharp, final, leaving no room for interpretation. Robert and Patricia Painter, guilty on multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. 18 months in federal prison for my father. 12 months and 2 years supervised probation for my mother. Jenna Painter, guilty on 2 counts of participating in fraudulent loan applications. 6 months in county jail and restitution payments. I thought I'd feel triumph. Instead, I just felt quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a long scream. When it was my turn to speak at the sentencing, I stood up. My palms were cold, my voice even. "I was raised to believe family meant trust," I said. "But trust without honesty isn't love, it's control. And you used that control to steal my future, my grandmother's home, and the integrity of our family name. You didn't just forge signatures, you forged relationships, and those take longer to rebuild than money." The courtroom was still. Even Jenna looked up for the first time. When I stepped down, the prosecutor gave me a nod, a small, quiet gesture that said, "You did it right." Outside, reporters waited. Cameras, flashbulbs. Evan shielded me with his jacket as we pushed through. One voice cut through the noise. "Simone, do you feel vindicated?" I paused. "No," I said. "I feel free." In the weeks that followed, the aftermath unfolded like controlled chaos. The civil suits wrapped up next. The bank, eager to bury its own negligence, reached settlements with every victim, including me, Uncle David, my cousins, and Grandma. My cottage was officially, legally, mine again, free of liens, free of ghosts. Grandma's home was refinanced with her consent this time. Uncle David became her co-signer, managing the payments properly. The old business property, my grandfather's legacy, was bought by Uncle David at a reduced price through the court settlement, ensuring it stayed in the family without debt attached. As for Jenna, she served her sentence quietly. No more PR posts, no family over everything hashtags. The day she got out, she sent me a handwritten letter. "Simone, I don't expect forgiveness, but I finally understand what I destroyed. I wanted to be special, and I thought being believed meant being loved. Mom and Dad taught me that appearances mattered more than truth. You proved otherwise. I'm sorry for everything, not just the money, for making you feel like the villain for telling the truth." I didn't write back, not because I hated her, because for once I didn't need to fix her. With part of the settlement, I made a choice that startled everyone, including myself. I started a small scholarship fund at the local community college. It's called the Honest Start Initiative, designed for business students who show both ambition and ethical awareness. A quiet promise that good ideas should never come at someone else's expense. Sometimes on weekends, the cottage fills with laughter again. Uncle David's kids fishing off the new dock, Grandma telling them stories about the old days before Wi-Fi, and Evan grilling by the porch. The first night I hosted them all, Grandma touched the porch railing and said softly, "Your grandpa would have loved this." I smiled. Then we did something right. The air smelled like cedar and lake water and something new, peace. Evan leaned against the doorframe, watching the sunset reflect off the water. "You ever think about moving back to the city full-time?" he asked. "Not a chance," I said. "This is where the noise stops." He nodded. "You rebuilt it. Your life, your name, your family." "Not rebuilt," I corrected. "Redefined." Sometimes people ask me if I ever regret pressing charges, if I wish I'd handled it within the family. I always say the same thing. Family doesn't mean covering up crimes. It means teaching each other not to commit them. The truth cost me my parents, but it gave me everything else. A chosen family built on respect instead of obligation. A home reclaimed not just from foreclosure, but from fear. And a name, Simone Painter, that finally feels whole again. I used to think peace meant forgiveness. Now I know it means boundaries. The kind that say, you can love people and still lock your doors. You can protect your heart and your property at the same time. The lake shimmered under the fading light, the cottage warm behind me. I took a deep breath and whispered to the still air, "This is mine, and it always will be."